Did you know that most stomach bloating, low energy, and constant sugar cravings can trace back to one organ most people never think about? Their gut. Antibiotics, processed food, stress, and a diet with almost zero variety are quietly wiping out the bacteria your gut actually needs to function. And most people just call it getting older or having a sensitive stomach without ever connecting it back to what's actually happening inside them. Today we're counting down 9 foods, backed by real research, that could start repairing your gut in as little as 30 days, ranked from good to absolutely essential. Number 1 comes from an actual clinical trial out of Stanford, and the results genuinely surprised the researchers running it. Let's get into it. Number 9. Garlic. Most people think of garlic as a flavor booster, not a gut health tool. That's leaving a lot on the table. Garlic is rich in a specific type of fiber called inulin, a prebiotic fiber that your own digestive enzymes can't break down. Instead, it travels intact to your lower gut, where it becomes food for your beneficial bacteria. This is the part most people miss about gut health. Probiotics get all the attention, but probiotics without prebiotic fiber to feed them are like introducing new employees to an office with no food in the building. Garlic is part of what keeps the good bacteria you already have alive and thriving. A whole bulb costs about 50 cents and lasts weeks in the pantry. Crush or chop it and let it sit for 10 minutes before cooking. That activates the beneficial compounds more fully than tossing it straight into a hot pan. Small clove, real prebiotic fuel, and it's already in your kitchen doing more than seasoning your dinner. And if garlic surprised you, wait until you hear what number 8 does with the ripeness of a single piece of fruit. Number 8. Green bananas. A ripe yellow banana and a green banana are almost different foods when it comes to your gut. As a banana ripens, its starch converts into sugar, but in its green, underripe state, that starch stays intact as something called resistant starch, a type of carbohydrate that resists digestion in your small intestine and travels down to feed your gut bacteria directly. Once your gut bacteria ferment resistant starch, they produce short-chain fatty acids, compounds that help maintain the lining of your gut wall and calm inflammation throughout your digestive tract. A green banana costs about the same as a ripe one, which is to say, next to nothing. Slice it into a smoothie if the texture is too firm to eat on its own, or let it ripen just slightly to a pale yellow-green for a middle ground between starch content and taste. Same fruit, different ripeness, completely different job inside your body. And if that changed how you look at a banana, number 7 is the vegetable most people only think of as a fancy restaurant side dish. Number 7. Asparagus. Asparagus doesn't get much attention outside of a nice dinner plate, and that's a shame for your gut bacteria specifically. It's one of the richer food sources of inulin, the same prebiotic fiber found in garlic, but in much larger quantities per serving. That fiber becomes the primary fuel source for some of the most beneficial bacterial strains in your digestive tract, particularly the ones linked to a healthier gut lining. Asparagus is also naturally high in water and low in calories, which means it adds volume and fullness to a meal without much caloric cost. A bunch runs a few dollars and takes about 8 minutes to roast or steam. Trim the woody ends, toss it in olive oil, and roast at high heat until the tips just start to crisp. Overcooking turns it mushy and strips some of the fiber's structural benefit. An overlooked vegetable doing quiet, unglamorous work for the bacteria that keep your gut functioning. And if asparagus surprised you, number 6 is a fermented paste that's been a kitchen staple in Japan for over 1,000 years. Number 6. Miso. Miso is fermented soybean paste, and fermentation is exactly the process that makes this one earn its spot on the list. During fermentation, beneficial bacteria and yeast break down the soybeans over months, producing live cultures and enzymes that support digestion when the miso itself hasn't been boiled at a high temperature, which can kill off those live cultures. That's the detail almost nobody mentions. Stir miso into soup after you've taken the pot off the heat, not while it's still boiling. Boiling miso destroys the exact bacterial cultures you're trying to get from it. A tub costs around $5 and lasts months in the fridge, since a little goes a long way. Whisk a spoonful into warm, not boiling, water or broth, or use it to add depth to a salad dressing or marinade. Ancient food, modern science backing it up, and a preparation mistake almost everyone makes without realizing it. And if that fermentation trick surprised you, number 5 is the drink doing the same job in liquid form, straight from the dairy aisle. Number 5, Kefir is a fermented milk drink, thinner than yogurt, and it carries a wider range of live bacterial and yeast strains than most yogurts on the shelf next to it. Where a typical yogurt might list 2 or 3 probiotic strains, Kefir can carry a dozen or more different strains of bacteria and beneficial yeast, working together rather than just 1 or 2 species doing all the work alone. That diversity matters. A gut microbiome with more different bacterial species tends to be more resilient, better able to bounce back after a course of antibiotics, a stretch of poor eating, or a stressful month that throws everything off balance. A bottle costs about $4 and lasts about a week once opened. Drink it straight or blend it into a smoothie if the tangy taste takes some getting used to at first. More bacterial diversity in one glass than most people get from an entire week of eating. And if Kefir surprised you, number 4 is the fiber your doctor has probably already mentioned, and most people still aren't using it right. Number 4, Psyllium Husk. Psyllium husk is a soluble fiber derived from the seeds of the plantago plant, and it's one of the most extensively studied fibers for digestive regularity available anywhere. When it hits water, psyllium husk swells into a gel, which does 2 things at once. It adds bulk to help things move through your digestive tract more consistently, and that same gel becomes fermentable fuel for specific strains of gut bacteria linked to reduced inflammation. It's genuinely one of the few supplements with strong, consistent clinical backing rather than just tradition or marketing behind it. A container costs around $10 and lasts a couple of months at a normal daily dose. Start with a small amount mixed into a full glass of water and increase gradually. Adding too much too quickly is the single most common mistake people make with it, and it can cause bloating if you rush it. Well studied, cheap per serving, and one of the most reliable fiber sources on this entire list if you introduce it slowly. And if that impressed you, number 3 is the food your grandmother made when you were sick, and it turns out she was onto something real. Number 3, bone broth. Bone broth is made by simmering animal bones and connective tissue for hours, and that long simmer releases collagen, gelatin, and amino acids like glutamine directly into the liquid. Glutamine specifically has been studied for its role in maintaining the integrity of the gut lining, the thin barrier of cells that's supposed to keep undigested particles and toxins from leaking into your bloodstream. When that barrier gets compromised, a condition often referred to as increased intestinal permeability, it's been associated with widespread low-grade inflammation. Bone broth isn't a guaranteed fix for that on its own, but the amino acids it provides are genuinely some of the raw materials your gut lining uses to repair itself. A carton costs around $6, or you can make a large batch at home from bones for a fraction of that. Drink it warm on its own, or use it as the base for soups, stews, or cooking rice instead of water. An old-fashioned remedy that turns out to have real biochemistry behind why it always felt like it helped. And if bone broth impressed you, number 2 is sitting in a jar in your fridge right now, and most people have no idea how powerful it actually is. Number 2, sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is fermented cabbage, and the fermentation process is where all the benefit actually happens. Raw, unpasteurized sauerkraut, the kind in the refrigerated section, not the shelf-stable jars near the hot dogs, is packed with live lactic acid bacteria produced during fermentation. Those bacteria are part of what researchers now recognize as directly supporting a more diverse gut microbiome. Here's the detail that trips people up. Pasteurized, shelf-stable sauerkraut has been heat-treated, which kills off the live bacteria that made it valuable in the first place. You're just eating salty cabbage at that point. Check the label for raw or unpasteurized, and it should be refrigerated, not sitting on a dry shelf. A jar costs around $5 and lasts weeks once opened. A forkful alongside a meal is enough. You don't need a full bowl to get the benefit, and starting slow helps your gut adjust without discomfort. Real sauerkraut versus the pasteurized version in the same aisle. One of the most overlooked reads on any ingredient label, which brings us to number 1, the food from an actual Stanford clinical trial, and the results even surprised the scientists running it. Number 1, kimchi. In 2021, researchers at Stanford School of Medicine ran a 10-week clinical trial comparing two diets in 36 healthy adults. One group ate a high-fiber diet, the other ate a diet rich in fermented foods, including kimchi, kefir, sauerkraut, and kombucha. The results published in the journal Cell surprised the research team. The high-fiber group showed essentially no change in microbiome diversity over the 10 weeks. The fermented food group showed a measurable increase in microbial diversity, and their blood samples showed reduced levels of 19 different inflammatory markers. One of the lead researchers called it a stunning finding, one of the first times a simple dietary change had been shown to reproducibly reshape the gut microbiome across an entire study group in a controlled trial. Kimchi, specifically fermented spiced cabbage traditional to Korean cuisine, was one of the core foods in that fermented food group, alongside kefir and other live culture foods already on this list. A jar costs around $6 to $8 and lasts weeks in the fridge, and like sauerkraut, you want the refrigerated, unpasteurized version to get the live cultures. A forkful alongside rice, eggs, or a sandwich is enough to start. It's spicy and tangy, so ease in if you're not used to fermented foods yet. A single food, backed by an actual controlled clinical trial, sitting quietly in the same refrigerated section most people walk straight past. Outrow, here's the pattern across this entire list. Your gut isn't fixed by one supplement or one probiotic pill taken once. It's built through variety, feeding the bacteria you already have with fiber, and introducing new bacterial strains through fermented foods, meal after meal, week after week. The Stanford research makes that point clearly. It wasn't a pill that changed those participants' microbiomes. It was food, eaten consistently for 10 weeks. Which one on this list are you adding to your routine first? Drop it in the comments. I read every one, and if you want the full breakdown of how to build these into one complete day of eating for gut health, the next video walks through exactly that.